Hi, he's Bob.
I'm Bob. And he's Tom.
And I'm Tom.
It's Helium Monday.
That's right.
The high point of your week's arrived.
Oh, yeah.
It's Helium Monday with Bob and Tom.
That's us, Bob.
Radio royalty with Indiana roots and a national footprint. This week, we catch up with broadcast legend Tom Griswold, the longtime host of Q95's The Bob and Tom Show. He takes us back to the duo's early start in Michigan, an instant chemistry that turned into decades of laughter and loyalty. Radio icon Tom Griswold, my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by the legendary host, the iconic Tom Griswold, the Bob and Tom Show. Tom, you continue to be a very busy guy, so I appreciate you taking the time to join me on the podcast.
Oh, of course. My pleasure. Thank you, Gerry.
Okay, so we're taping this on a Tuesday at 1:00 in the afternoon. What's your day? What's your typical day like? What would you normally be doing if you weren't on this podcast here?
Right now, I would be at the gym with my trainer, Jonathan. I moved him today.
Yeah.
I work out 4 days a week with two different trainers, Pilates one day and then weight training and some other stuff the other day. So
good for you. That's outstanding. And what I was going to ask you about how you keep sharp, keep motivated, keep zeroed in doing the show, which is it's got to be a grind. I mean, you do it day after day, year after year. You got to be funny. You got to do a lot of stuff. It's not but believe me, I know it's not an easy thing that you do, and so exercise is an important part of that.
Yeah, you got to stay fit, and I wish I could get more sleep. I get up about 3. I'm usually in the building here at 4, usually about 10 of 4. And then I sit down and I've got 2 hours to go over the stuff that I did the previous evening. I usually work in the afternoons from about 5 to 7 and then try to get to bed about 8:30. I've got children. I've got, dogs and my beautiful Kelly. So I've got a lot to do. But for me, the best thing is routine. I've got my routine and I really stick to it. And that makes it possible. Plus, as you indicate, yeah, I know it's not gold mining or digging ditches. There is a component of difficulty, which is staying sharp, staying on top of the news, being prepared. And then I've got a great crew that knows how to make everything funny. And the secret is, I think, in some ways, is hard work and good luck.
Yeah, yeah. Do you still love it? I mean, do you still have a passion for it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's great. It's different every day. I often compare it to being in the restaurant business. The menu's changing a lot, but you're only as good as the show you're doing today. And I'm sure you've been to a restaurant you really like and you had a couple of bad meals there. You never went back.
Yeah.
So you've got to keep the quality up. So I like to think that we have a deep bench. We have a bunch of people. We've got, I think, 27 full-time employees here in the Bob and Tom Show and a bunch of part-timers. So we have a good crew, and we try to stay on top of things and be awake and alert.
And, I can remember when you went on the air in Indianapolis in 1983. You actually, right. Yeah, I arrived from Fort Wayne to Channel 6 in 1983, so we kind of paralleled there. But I remember how iconic, for lack of a better term, iconic the show was back then, even in the early days and what you created. I want to talk a little bit about that, but to fast forward to today in a much different radio business. You've been syndicated for a number of years. I think either the most syndicated or one of the most syndicated, nationally syndicated radio shows in the country. What is different today about the way you do your business every day, especially as it relates to syndication?
Well, I was going to answer rather a more general aspect of it, which is the 24-hour news cycle.
Yeah.
And there was a time when we'd come in and we'd have the first crack at the news and nobody had seen it and it was coming over the wire. And you and I have been doing it long enough to remember the days when you'd come in early and the teletype machine would jam. Yeah. Instead of having the news headlines, you'd have a big square about the size of a postage stamp and you'd go, uh-oh, turn on the other radio station. We got to copy down their news. Let's see. So your question was, how is it different? Like I said, the news cycle means that everybody's kind of on top of everything. They've got their phones and the internet. That changes things. It now requires a lot more preparation immediately before I go on the air. Mm-hmm. Used to be I could do a lot of prep the day before and it would still be fresh. Now you've got to come in at 4 a.m. Okay, what's different? What's changed? What's happening right now? So when we go on the air, we're ready for it, and we're ahead of everybody. We're a step ahead. That's a little bit harder. With respect to syndication, we have two different ways we syndicate the show now. Without getting too complicated, we feed the show out in real time beginning at 6 o'clock, and each hour we have three breaks that are of the same length. Now we're also feeding the show out, how do I word this, in blocks in which a station can pick up the show, and if they don't want to play local commercials or local news or whatever, they can do whatever they want in that space. They could play songs, they could go right back to the show. So it's sent out in blocks, which makes it a little bit easier for some stations to handle because maybe they can't fill that whatever it is, the 18 minutes an hour. So we're making it a little more convenient. And this is something we just started. It requires another employee to do the job of doing the quick edits. So that's a little bit different than what we'd been doing before. And with respect to content, we're just flexible like we always have been and, trying to keep it. I have like a meter that goes, okay, is this interesting? A, or B, is it funny? If it's interesting and funny, that is great.
Right.
It's also rare. But you try to you kind of put yourself. I will often put myself in the seat of a truck, thinking, okay, is this going anywhere? Is this funny, or is this really interesting? And then I'll bail and we'll move on to the next thing. Fortunately, we don't have a particularly rigid format with respect to when we do sports or news or guests. That makes it a little bit easier.
How many stations are you on now nationally?
About 100.
Wow. Still on 100 stations. From a content standpoint, thinking back, and it's been years ago now, to when the idea for syndication came up, how did that discussion start? Because, the Bob and Tom show was, you created a legendary product here in Indianapolis and Indiana. So then this whole idea of, hey, let's take this thing national. What was that conversation like?
It was really interesting. We were voted in one of the radio trade publications the most stolen from show in American radio. And I can verify that. I would have friends, they'd say, hey, I just drove through Pittsburgh and the guy introduced his latest song and it was yours. Oh, okay. And we were at the time, this radio station was owned by a guy named Frank Wood, a brilliant guy out of Cincinnati. And Frank came in one day and he goes, I know you guys have been getting offers to leave and everything and go to other places. I've got an idea. Why don't we try sending you guys all over the country? And that was what started it. God bless Mr. Frank Wood. And Frank sadly died just a couple of months ago. A really brilliant guy, incredibly creative, a great attorney, great business guy. And it was Frank's idea. And then a bunch of other folks around here figured out a way to do it with satellites. And the first places we went on, you mentioned Fort Wayne. We went on in Fort Wayne and Evansville and South Bend. And those were the first three. And I can remember the Fort Wayne newspaper, there was the editorial guy. We hadn't even gone on. And he goes, this is going to be a huge failure. I hate these guys. And then, of course, the first ratings book, we were number one, which was great. But I don't know if that guy still has his gig. I doubt it. But we got very lucky, and we had some instant success. And then we had a slow build. And it didn't work everywhere, but it did work a lot of places. And a lot of those stations are still on board. And we're still on in all those places, although at different stations.
how did you, and to this day, how do you balance that? You've got your audience here for the Bob and Tom show, and then at the same time, you're in markets all over the country and making the content, the news, the interviews, all that stuff relevant to a broader audience.
That's a great question, and we used to be extraordinarily careful not to mention Indianapolis because some of the affiliates would get upset. We're not so worried about that anymore. And I mean, you've got a guy, for example, Pat McAfee, who's a good friend of the show and used to be on our show all the time. Pat's show emerges out of Indianapolis proudly.
Yeah.
And we've come to embrace that to a degree. But we also have, each hour, we have several minutes that are broadcast just locally. And then we can do extra segments at 10 o'clock or record other things. But yeah, there certainly is a little bit of a loss. I mean, there was a lot of very Indianapolis-specific stuff back in the day, which we don't do anymore. I kind of miss it. I mean, we were even syndicated when we did the Reggie Miller song. Reggie, and we did songs about Peyton Manning. We took that Alice Cooper song, 18, and number 18. We did a lot of stuff like that. And some of the stuff translates nationally. And Indianapolis, as you know, you arrived, but we both arrived in 83. This is a completely different city than it was then with respect to, I mean, back in the day, this will sound pretentious because I am. I can remember being on a chairlift out at Vail or Steamboat or whatever, and someone would go, "Where are you from?" And I'd go, "I'm from Indianapolis." And they'd go, "Oh, yeah." Kind of give you the, or they might go, "Oh, yeah, you got that race there, Indy 500. And then not too long ago, all of a sudden it was, "Oh, man, the Colts. Oh, God, you got the Pacers." And then the city has grown so much and its reputation has grown. And again, God bless the great people that brought the Colts here and did all those things. And you think about the facilities here, people forget. I mean, Deer Creek, for example. Now, I was going to say, now it's Verizon. Wait a minute. No, it's not Verizon anymore. But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Ruoff, sorry.
Right, yeah, I know. I'm the same way. I still call it Deer.
I just saw a picture of Drew Powell, the actor who's from here. He lives out in Hollywood. He just sent me this picture. He's wearing a Deer Creek T-shirt, the original Deer Creek logo. But my point was, for example, Deer Creek, Ruoff, gets voted every year. The bands and the crews get to vote, and they vote that the best venue in the country because it's perfectly designed. It's got a great, they can load the stuff, they can empty the stuff, great stage, great lighting. But that's this whole city. People that aren't from here suddenly realize, wait a minute, we have this great stadium. We've got so many great venues. I just saw Hamilton for the fourth time at Sunday evening. There are so many great venues here, but when you and I first got here, not all that stuff was here.
Right.
They had just finished putting up the dome. The first day I came down here, I was staying at the downtown Hyatt for the interview, and out my window was this big hole in the ground.
Oh, yeah.
That became the Hoosier Dome.
Yep.
And of course, Market Square Arena was great, and then it was replaced with an even better facility, Bankers Life. You and I have seen all this growth, and there so many people never get credit for having the wisdom to plan all this great stuff in the city. And so we were here the whole time to make fun of it.
Right. But you bring up a good point. To me, the Indianapolis story, it's quite a story from those, the early 80s through today and what has transpired here. And the show, the Bob and Tom show, you have to feel as though truly you were a part of that, because whether it was the 500 or so many of these other events, that the show was there, the show was, everybody was listening to it. Do you feel like you're part of the Indianapolis story?
Yeah, I mean, we were observers, and like I said, we got to make fun of a lot of stuff as it was happening. But yeah, we've really embraced the city, and both Bob and I just loved living here. We had many opportunities to leave. We were asked to leave several times to go to, as they call them, bigger markets, which always kind of bugged me. But we had families here, and we just wanted to stay. And so when Frank said we can syndicate it, that made it, yeah, sure, let's go for it.
Yeah. You mentioned Bob Kevoian. It's hard to believe. I think, has he been retired now for 10 years?
Yeah, it'll be 10 years. It'll be 10 years Friday. I just saw him 10 days ago.
Wow.
And Bob's doing well. He had some health concerns and some
Yeah,
challenges.
I was going to ask you, how's he doing? Yeah.
He's doing fine. He's dealing with some stuff, but he's very happy. And when he retired, it was a good move for him.
Yeah.
And he has really enjoyed his retirement. He has like a Airstream, and he's been all over the country. And if you had asked me years ago if Bob would ever do that, when I met Bob up in Harbor Springs, Michigan, Bob had been touring with the Young Americans, which is a great singing group of kind of college age and post-college guys and ladies. And Bob had driven a bus, and he'd been I want to say he'd been to like 45 of the contiguous states. And I can remember him saying, "I'll never get in a bus again." And then when he retired, hey Bob, where are you? Oh, I'm taking my bus out to watch spring training with the Reds. Oh, okay. And pretty soon he was all over the place. So that's been great for him. We certainly wish him the best, and I think he's doing pretty well right now these days, dealing with a couple of health issues.
Good. You mentioned Michigan and how everything got started. I know you've told the story many times, but I think it's a great story. Take us back to, I guess, Petoskey, right? Petoskey, Michigan.
Yeah, the radio station was in Petoskey, Michigan, which you're familiar with the area. That's right across the bay from Harbor Springs, which is one of the oldest resorts, certainly in the Midwest. Beautiful natural harbor. I'd been going up there. I first went up there when I was 4 months old. I'd been going up there every year of my life. And I ended up on the radio up there kind of by accident. I'd been on the radio in Florida and I quit that job when the station was sold, and I had to have some oral surgery, and it had kind of gone wrong, and I had this terrible reaction, and my face sort of blew up, and I had to take some time to get healed. So I went up to Harbor Springs by myself, and I went to see the Jay Giles Band at the outdoor venue up there. I'm a big fan. And on the way home, I stopped at a place called Bar Harbor, and Bob was, I didn't know Bob was Bob. Bob was bartending, and I heard him talking to a guy playing pool, and he said something about, have they fixed the cart machine? Well, at the time, a cart machine, which, by the way, now is like saying daguerreotype. It's now an ancient technology. So I went up to him and said, are you a radio guy? Because only a radio person would know what, and he said, yeah. And he worked at the station over in Petoskey. And I said, oh, hey, I need to look at the trades. I got to get back on the air. Can I come over to your station? And I drove over to Petoskey a couple of days later. And just by chance, the general manager walked in, and we got talking. And the next thing you know, I was the program director, which, by the way, was a really irresponsible hire. I should not be the program director of anything. But and that's how we got hooked up. And then we ended up switching stations, and we did quite well up there. We were on a 100,000 watt, we called it the blowtorch. The tower was on top of Boyne Highlands, which is a ski resort in Harbor Springs. And we used to say that we broadcast primarily to moose and water. But the station was called WJML, and we did have a huge signal. And we ended up doing our sort of goofy stuff, not really knowing what we were doing. And we were lucky enough to do extremely well. And then this next part of the story is pretty interesting. I was technically the newsman, which is rather odd. But I'd gotten off the air that day, and I was working on some stuff for the next day. And those were the days pre-voicemail, in which I'm sure you lived through this. You'd get off the air or get off your job, whatever you were doing, and there'd be those pink slips.
Yeah, right.
A secretary would fill out not the kind where you get fired. I'm sorry to be not making sense. There were these little pink slips, and it would say you had a phone call from blah, blah, blah. So one day I get off the air, and I had 17 of those slips, and every one of them was from a radio station, and they wanted to talk to me. And I thought, that is really odd. Why? Because we hadn't sent out a tape. I didn't know what was going on. I remember the first one was in Alabama, but the second one I came on was in Indianapolis, which was the closest to where we were in Michigan. So I made arrangements to come down here for the interview. I drove down. Bob flew down. And by the way, on my way down, I went through Lafayette for some reason, and I had car trouble, and I pulled up to the gas station. They were closed, and that's when I met what I would come to know as Hoosier Hospitality. Some guy didn't know me from Adam. Hey, I don't care if we're closed. Help me out. Got my car going. Just a great sign, great karma. Anyway, we did the interview, and Bob and I both agreed to come down here. But what's interesting about this is we still wanted to know, how did they get our name? Well, here's what we found out. There are these radio conventions and TV conventions. There are fewer than they used to be, by the way, and not as well attended. But they would have these radio conventions, and you'd have a lot of jocks going and a lot of management, a lot of programming people. And this one guy ran a special thing in the afternoon. He'd go, if you want to get somebody out of your city and out of your market, get rid of your competition. Bring a tape of them. So unbeknownst to us, some guy, it was from a station in Kalkaska, Michigan. This guy brought a tape of, he had taped us. I hope he edited it and played it for this group of people. And 17 of them said, hey, I like these guys. But we didn't know that for quite a while. Wow. And then at the time, I want to say this building was just Q95 and WNDE. Obviously, they're still both in this building. There are now a few other stations in here. But that's kind of how it happened. And Bob and I were really nervous wrecks. Our contract, I think if we'd gotten fired, I think we got paid for 2 months. I moved down here. I had to borrow $3,000 from my aunt. I had no furniture. It was fun. But we had a great time, and it took a year or so before we caught on.
Yeah.
And the rating system then, they used to have something called the Birch ratings.
Okay.
Which were different than what was then the Arbitron, which is now the Nielsen. And the Birch ratings, as I recall, were based on phone surveys, and they tended to be a little quicker to the take. And we started doing really well in those fairly early on, and that gave the management enough confidence to keep paying us.
Yeah. Wow. In terms of chemistry, which is obviously very important in your business, in broadcasting, what was it about, you'd never met Bob before, you guys connected in that bar, you started working together. Was it an instant kind of chemistry thing and back and forth? Really? Yeah.
And then funny enough, I got an apartment in Harbor Springs, and it was right across from Bar Harbor. And then the apartment went condo after 6 months, like everything else in a resort town would. And I had to move in with Bob because I didn't have a place to live. So Bob and I became roommates. Bob was working 3 different jobs. He was tending bar, he was working at the radio station, and he was working at Boyne Highlands singing on stage. And he was good at all 3 jobs. But there would be times where I'd be getting up to go into the station, and he'd be coming home to try to get 2 or 3 hours of sleep and then meet me.
Okay, so he was a singer, he sang?
Yeah, oh yeah. Bob, and a talented songwriter and singer, and over the years he's written a bunch of comedy songs, some with me, some without me, but they've all been funny, I hope. And we were just friends. We just hit it off, and there was we're different enough that that was kind of effective. We didn't agree on everything. That helped. So there was a little bit of a yin-yang thing going on there.
Yeah, yeah. Much more ahead with Tom Griswold, the legendary host, Q95, Bob and Tom, nationally syndicated. Much more ahead when we return on the Business and Beyond podcast. Stay with us.
As a bank, PNC prides itself on being boring. But the truth is they couldn't be more excited to serve the dynamic Indianapolis community. For nearly 160 years, they've quietly toiled away to deliver brilliant results for their equally brilliant clients. They have dedicated PNC teams throughout the local area, all ready to do the boring work to help you unlock your own brilliance. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. PNC Bank, National Association member FDIC.
We build Indiana. The Laborers International Union of North America builds and maintains roads, bridges, and other essential infrastructure that make us the crossroads of America. So thanks to LIUNA members' work, Hoosiers have a better quality of life, like access to utilities, easier routes to jobs, schools, or medical care, and deliveries keep moving. We build Indiana for good jobs and stronger communities. The Laborers International Union of North America. We are LIUNA.
And welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week, is Bob and Tom Show host Tom Griswold. And Tom talked a lot about the early days and your relationship with Bob Kevoian and how that evolved and how you got to Indianapolis. Why was Indy, in your view, Indy makes sense for the show? There just seemed to be a natural fit between the show and Indianapolis.
I wish I had a good answer.
Yeah.
Bob and I just came down here. I had been here once before. This is actually kind of funny. Before your time, even, a friend of mine was running a restaurant called Houlihan's.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it was, at the time, I believe it was in the Glendale Mall or somewhere over that way.
Yes. Yep.
I had gone to a wedding in Cincinnati of one of my college roommates, and I drove here from Cincinnati not knowing it was the famous storm, the most famous storm in the history of Indianapolis. And I had no idea I was driving into this storm. Of course, it's pre-internet. And I got here, and I remember getting off of the interstate and sliding right across the road. I made my way up to my friend's house, and as a matter of fact, he lived in what was then the Fall Creek Apartments, which are 1,000 yards from where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
And it was a horrible storm. They'd shut the city down, a legendary storm, and my friend Roy's car was completely frozen shut, and he had the liquor that he had to take to Houlihan's, and he was out there with a cigarette lighter trying to get the trunk to open to his Alfa Romeo. But other than that, I had very little exposure to Indianapolis. We just came down here. We liked the program director. We liked the general manager. And of course, as you know, in this business, they were both gone within a year.
Yeah.
It's the turnover. I'm not sure how this building has had, I would say close to, I think since Bob and I, maybe 25 program directors.
Wow. Yeah.
Maybe 20. And it's been owned by 4 or 5 different companies and, I don't know, 10 general managers, but some of them have been really good and have lasted for a long time. So,
yeah. You talk about all the people you have interviewed, and I think to your credit, I think you're a great interviewer, and that has people want to be on the show. What, in your view, makes a good interviewer?
And this is really hard for me. You have to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am not a very good listener. One of the basic things I will always tell people is never ask a 2-part question, because unless no one ever remembers which part.
Yeah.
I mean, even interviewing me, you're lucky I answered the questions because I go off on these tangents. Always try to pay attention to what they're saying, and then see if you can follow it up. Try to find out what they're interested in talking about. If you've got someone who wants to promote something, find out what that is. And then sometimes it's a matter of getting that out of the way and moving on to something that you want to know. But as Bob used to always say, an interview is a conversation. And you try to hand the ball back and forth, and you try to keep it interesting. And you try to if it's it's somebody really famous and they have something they want to promote, let them get that out.
Yeah,
let them do what they have to do. You're trying to help them out with that. And once they realize you're not going to come after them. This isn't one of those things where I'm going to ambush you. They realize, these are good guys, and we're trying to get some information out there. I'm not an investigative reporter. I'm just trying to have some fun.
So 2015, you were inducted along with Bob into the National Radio Hall of Fame. Think back on that event. These kinds of things, they're special, and sometimes you try to be all shucks kind of thing. But what kind of a night was that for you?
It was great. A bunch of the folks that have been on the show were able to come up with us. I want to say, let's see, the ceremony was in Chicago, and that was the night Bob announced he was retiring.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, and so it was kind of bittersweet, but it was a nice honor. I didn't really necessarily expect it, but obviously you've been through this kind of stuff, and it's nice to be recognized by the folks that do what you do.
Yeah.
Because one of the things about doing this, people will say to me, "Do you listen to other radio shows in the morning?" Of course not. I'm on the air. I don't tape them. I never do. But it's nice to know that the folks that are out there listening are enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah. What's been the key, in your view, Tom, to longevity to do what you do, to do what the Bob and Tom Show does for 10 years or 15 years, 20 years is an accomplishment. But 40 plus years, that's pretty amazing. Is there one thing in your view that's led to the sustained success?
Let me cheat and give you two answers. One is keep making the people money.
Yes, very important. Yeah.
So we have developed a good relationship with advertisers, and we have an audience that responds to the advertising that we do. We have an affluent audience, and if we can keep hauling in the cash, they'll keep distributing the show. I think you're probably asking more about the content of the show.
Yeah.
That's just a matter of, really being able to try to stay with the times. And I don't know about you, but doing something like this, you get so busy doing this. I've got to start thinking about tomorrow's show today. We don't have time to look back at the big picture and to look forward. And that's where you need somebody that is going, okay, what's this marketplace going to be like in a year? What's it going to be like in 5 years? What can we count on? And lately, it's kind of hard to do that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of folks in media, especially in everything, really missed the digital revolution. If you look at the record industry, they thought they had it made with CDs.
Yeah.
Even though CDs were cheaper to make the records, they jacked up the price. And then, what do you mean, downloading? What's that? And now, downloading, wait a minute, what's downloading? Oh, that's gone now? Oh, we're going to go to streaming. And I certainly don't have the foresight. I never saw any of that coming. But that's just an example. You really want to try to stay in the game. So we have a bunch of young guys and ladies on our staff that are paying attention to that stuff. We're just about to go real deep into TikTok because that's where a lot of the eyeballs are. And there are a lot of technical aspects. This used to always bug me. I don't think, oh, wait a minute here. I got my phone over here.
Yeah.
Which fortunately, I just realized it's tied into this board this morning. It went off on the air. And it went through the microphone, not through the mic, through the board. So it was really loud. My doctor was calling me, I think, to tell me that I just passed my physical. But Gerry, when you see someone, they're filming everywhere you go now. You go to a concert, and there used to be everyone was holding their phones like this.
Yeah,
and now they're holding them like this. That's because of TikTok, et cetera, because it makes no sense to film stuff this way. Your television set isn't fit. This is the kind of stuff I never would have figured out.
Yeah,
but we are really working at staying in the game, and we have a YouTube channel. Our show is broadcast in various formats. I'm in a room here with about, 10 cameras, and we have a switching room. So I read, believe it or not, I read the Wall Street Journal, but I'm not as thoroughly as you do. I was reading in the Wall Street Journal the number of podcasts that people are watching is staggering. And then the funny thing in the article was, I think it was the same article, was saying that it's important to have closed captions because people will be sitting there at work and they'll have the thing on their desk and they're not really watching it, but they'll look down and they'll be able to read stuff. I would never have thought of any of this.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to do. So if someone says, oh, you have closed caption radio? Yep. You've got to do all this stuff, and you've got to put out, just to keep people listening, you've also got to have the ability to listen to it at a different time. That's the beauty of what you're doing, because people don't have to tune in at a certain hour, at least for this aspect of your career.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do have stuff that's time sensitive and goes at a certain time, but we do an email segment to start off every show, and we'll get stuff. Oh, I was listening to your show from 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
because
right.
we've made it really easy for them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really important factor. So I guess to answer your question, which I've kind of not answered, keeping up with the technology is important. And if you have the technological mind that I do, that means asking other people. Before we started this interview, we had 3 people hustling around to make sure I had the microphone on.
Tom, it's been a real treat to catch up with you. Great conversation. Thanks for all you do, too, because we didn't get into that, but you and Bob and you continue to really contribute to community and to a lot of great, worthy causes. So thanks for all you do, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Could I ask you one quick question?
Yeah.
Now, everyone knows you spell your name Gerry.
Right.
Now, was that difficult for you when you were a kid and the substitute teacher would come in and go, okay, Gerry?
Yeah. No, the last name was difficult, Tom.
Oh, by the way, do you know who shares your last name?
Who's that?
Tim Allen.
Oh, that's right. I did know that.
Yeah, and Tim is one of 10. You may be his long-lost half-brother. I'm not sure. Well, Gerry, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, okay, Tom. Thank you. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. We are a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gerry Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.